Hello, everybody. Welcome into another episode of Around the Octagon. Today, we are joined by a special guest, a former Bellator Bantamweight champion, UFC top 10 fighter, and current MMA coach at 10th Planet in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, Zack Makovsky. From D1 wrestling to fighting under the big lights, you've done it all. It's a pleasure to have you on today. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Sound old. I had all that stuff. Old now.
Definitely an impressive resume, I will say.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely. But to start us off here and kind of get into things, can you give us your general background on how you started training mixed martial arts?
Yeah, I started as a wrestler, I think from the age of 6, basically, because it was a winter sport and I was too short to play basketball. My dad wrestled like in high school and then on like a club team in college, and asked me if I wanted to get into wrestling, and I didn't really know what the sport was, but I said yes, and I kind of fell in love with it right away. I think it was just different than I think I'd played like soccer and baseball previously to that, and it was just kind of like a different level of intensity. They made like kids cry and throw up on their first day of practice because they weren't listening and they had to like sprint and push up, and kids are crying and throwing up, and I was like, whoa, this is different. And I kind of loved it right from the get-go. But I got into it through wrestling, and then I was also like into martial arts in general, although I didn't like practice or anything as a kid. I eventually got my parents to put me into like a taekwondo school, but they told me later, I didn't know this at the time, they told me later they intentionally sought out like a super passive, no sparring, no contact kind of instructor. And now they're like, oh man, maybe we could have got it out of his system earlier if we didn't put him in that stuff. But I think just through wrestling, and then when the UFC came around, I used to rent the VHSs from Blockbuster Video and dating myself, I guess. But yeah, I was just super interested in, wrestling was a combat sport and kind of just like less rules, more tools to try to defeat your opponent. It was just always interesting to me. So just kind of followed from wrestling. Once I was wrestling in college, there was like an MMA gym basically in Philly, and in the off season, I basically started going there through my college career, kind of getting a little bit of submission knowledge until I graduated, and then I started moving more towards MMA.
Awesome.
Yeah. Kind of going along that vein, how did names like Eddie Alvarez help you along the way? Was there anybody, like any particular names that stuck out that were particularly influential that kind of served as like, whether it was a training partner or a mentor or anything like that? Was there anybody in particular that was helpful to you?
Yeah. Yeah, I trained with Eddie from I think like one of his very first days in the gym. I was already in there, but then he was basically he graduated high school. My high school team wrestled his high school team, although I didn't know him at the time. And then we ended up seeing each other at this gym, Philadelphia Fight Factory. It doesn't exist anymore, but it was like the initial original kind of MMA gym in Philadelphia. There were jiu-jitsu gyms and Muay Thai gyms, but this was the first one that was kind of doing MMA. I think even before the letters MMA were around, it was like we did Vale Tudo or NHB, no holds barred fighting. And Eddie started to come in, but I was still in college, so I would go back. I would train for a couple months and then go back to college, wrestling season. And every time I would come back in the off season, Eddie had just jumped huge levels, and I think he was 3-0 as a pro, when I graduated, and he had already initially when he first came, I was doing very well with him, especially on the ground. But by the time I was ready to come out and see if I wanted to compete in fighting, he was at a different level and just kind of beating up everybody in the gym. And he helped me through my career, as far as because he was a little bit ahead in just being a professional, making money, kind of having a manager, how to get sponsors. So he helped hook me up with some managers. He's one of the main reasons I originally got an invite to fight in Bellator, which is kind of the promotion that kind of really springboarded me into making a career out of fighting. So he definitely had a big help on my career. But that whole gym, Fight Factory, was such an underrated, amazing place that I think was way ahead of its time. I want to give the owner and head teacher there, Steve Haig, a ton of credit. He actually is like one of the best coaches I've had, and was way ahead of his time. And I think he's what made that place like kind of really great. And we were lucky because we had a lot of people come through. But Steve and Eddie were like the guys who influenced me the most early on.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear. Kind of segueing a little bit as well to Bellator. From around like 2010, 2011, you were able to tally, I think my notes are right. I think 8 straight victories. Was there anything in particular that made you so successful during that run, or anything you were working on that kind of came to fruition, something that just kind of stuck and got in a groove and just kind of went with it? Was there anything in particular that was that stuck out to you during that time period?
I think I was just kind of getting comfortable enough with like the elements that weren't wrestling. I was just like striking actually took me a long time to kind of get more comfortable with. If you watch any of like my very early fights, my first like 3 fights, the striking was pretty horrendous to be honest. And I think it just took a bit of time to kind of get a little more comfortable with my striking, to like use it like intelligently with my wrestling. Like, how do I blend my wrestling in with striking rather than just like throw a huge overhand and try to dive at their legs, kind of like the initial original kind of attempt. And my grappling, like I started to compete a lot in jiu-jitsu, and then I was just like, I wasn't confident that I would like beat anybody at grappling, but I was pretty confident that if I get on top of someone in MMA, I'm not very concerned about how good you are at jiu-jitsu off your back. Like, I don't have to beat you at grappling. I have to kind of defend and then hit you. So it's not like I have to like open your guard, pass your guard. Like, I can just strip grips and hit and make you play just play defensive from a grappling perspective. And it was like, I think the confidence of like not being scared to take anyone down, I don't care like what their jiu-jitsu rank was, and starting to have a better approach of blending my striking and wrestling together kind of was like all clicking pretty well at that point. So I think it was just like the amount of time I had in Bellator kind of came around at the right time when I was kind of getting into a groove, basically.
Yeah, gotcha. I think as well as with Bellator, the UFC, you fought, like we touched on in the beginning, you fought for so many promotions. Was there one that was your favorite? And if so, why?
I mean, I don't know if I have a favorite promotion. I mean, making it to the UFC and like having my UFC debut was like maybe the most special fight to me. Not just the fact that I made it there. I kind of like in my wrestling career, I didn't take wrestling very seriously till I was a little bit older, and then when I really started to care about it, it was a little late, and then I was 1 match short qualifying for NCAA championships my junior and senior year, and like my main goal was just to like qualify and wrestle in the best tournament in the country and just like make it there to be with the best guys there are, and I was kind of like my goal to like make it to the UFC also to kind of just be in there fighting with the best guys there are. And, I was pretty late into my career. I think I had like 20 pro fights before I got in the UFC. So I was kind of on the verge of like not knowing if it was going to happen again. And I'm feeling like the same thing was going to repeat. And I was like, doing pretty well, but like just short of where I like really one of my main goals was. So just getting to the UFC and that, like, the promotion that's the biggest stage, the promotion that, especially at the time, people thought the sport was called UFC, not MMA. They'd be like, oh, you're UFC. Like, that's
I
how
think
big
some
the UFC
fans
was.
still do.
Yeah, probably. I don't think that's a good thing, but it shows
No.
It's not.
how big the brand is, so.
Definitely. And while on the topic of you making your UFC debut and whatnot, can you give us kind of what that experience was like taking or getting the call there and stepping in?
What do you want? Like the details of it, or
just kind of like what were you feeling when you initially got the call? You're getting the UFC contract, you're stepping in. What was that experience like? What were you feeling?
very excited, but nervous and like because so I got called to take a fight on 10 days notice for my UFC debut. So it was like someone got hurt. It was John Dodson got hurt, tore his ACL, and I was supposed to. They called me to see if I wanted to replace him against Scott Jorgensen, and I had just fought like uh, less than 2 weeks before that. And so like I didn't train from like after my fight. There was Thanksgiving. I put on some weight, and then I wasn't really training for a week and a half or whatever until I got the call. And I'm like, do I like okay? If I get this opportunity on this stage, like I want to be my best. They're giving me 10 days notice. I haven't really been in the gym the last week and a half, but I just came off a good fight where I had a long training camp. I mean, obviously the answer was yes. Like I wasn't going to turn it down, but it was like, oh man, is this going to be my best showing? It's 10 days notice. It's against a guy who's ranked 7th in the world at a weight class above. He's coming down a weight class. I'm like, whatever. Like I can't turn down the opportunity. So it was like not an ideal situation, but I mean, in reality, there was no way I was going to turn it down. It was, the opportunity, like I said, through the way my wrestling career ended that I was looking for. So I was like, shit, like I'd rather like them sign me and then eventually book a fight. But this is probably how it's going to happen at this point. So kind of accepted it. I was at a bar when I got a call drinking for it, and it's 10 days away. And I'm like, uh-oh.
Let me step on a scale. What am I weighing right now?
Yeah.
Oh,
my
that's
weight
great.
wasn't too bad. It was more like I just like my
least.
cardio. I felt like my cardio in a week and a half might have taken a significant dip, but it was all right.
So I know recently a decent amount of guys have made the transition from different promotions like Bellator into the UFC, and some have struggled to find success early. Do you think the lights really shine brighter? Is there any truth to that?
I mean, maybe in your mind, not in reality. I mean,
yeah.
Fighting's fighting. Nothing's different. I think the general quality is higher there. They have more of the best guys than anybody else. So you're fighting like elite fighters all the time, but the lights aren't it. The lights are if the lights do something to you, it's really that's on you. It's kind of in your mind,
Yeah, definitely.
Whatever you do on the stage is what you do. Like the height of the stage or how bright the lights are on the stage is actually totally irrelevant to what actually has to be done. Not the perception of the audience or anything like that, but for the athletes, the fighters, like I don't think they should treat it any differently than any other one. And I kind of always felt that way. Like I was as nervous for my first fight as I was for my very last one. If anything, for the UFC debut, I actually was a little maybe more relaxed because it was like I accomplished one of my main goals. Like it was like a relief almost to like just be there. I had one of the only times I walked out with like a huge smile on my face to the fight. And usually I'm trying to like dial it in and be more kind of like focused and just thinking about everything I'm looking to do in the fight. And I was kind of just taking it in and enjoying the experience of that first walk out. But no, in my opinion, the lights is not that it can't really affect you. It definitely can, but it's in your head, not anything else.
It's a good mindset to have on it.
Yeah, for sure. Kind of a little bit more of an open-ended one. We've been told that you have some great stories about training with Firas Zahabi and GSP. Is there a particular story or moment that you want to share with us that kind of stuck out to you?
I don't know if I have any. Like what kind of story? I mean, Firas was my head coach for 5 or 6 years. George, like he was always around helping train and everything, and it's just cool to be around that caliber of people and that caliber of gym and coach and everything. I don't know. After every class, everyone sits around, and Firas has a philosophy degree and he debates philosophy Him and George always, one of the main arguments they had over and over and over again. This is like, I probably witnessed George and Firas argue after training maybe like 6 times about, on average, who would win, a lion or a tiger, you know? And Firas always brings it back to the, like, I guess the gladiatorial, like, betting lines. They have, like, records of it, and tigers were generally favored, and George just likes the lion. I think just in his head, he's like, "No, the lion's got it." He doesn't have like an actually good argument. He's like, the mane will protect him more or something. I don't know.
That's great.
Yeah, I follow GSP.
We sit around and
on
have
Instagram
stupid debates like every single class. It's fun.
Yeah, no, I definitely I follow GSP on social media, and some of the stuff he posts, it's definitely below. I could see him doing that. But also in the UFC, he fought some really big names like Joseph Benavidez comes to mind, as well as Tim Elliott. What was it like going against that caliber of opponent, and what do you think of Elliott's performance last week?
I actually didn't. I only saw a clip of the finish. I actually didn't get to see his fight, but that was a huge win. I think. Who did he fight? Kai Asakura, right?
Yep.
Yeah, he's good. I watched him fight in Ryzen a bunch of times. I mean, Elliott's just he's super scrappy. He'll never give up. He's awkward, so it's like it's hard to prepare for. Like, he's kind of got just an insane style. So, you know, he could give anybody problems, because it's very hard to kind of get a grip on how to approach dealing with him. And he's got like a great gas tank, so you know you can't really fade or anything with him. And he's got a diverse set of skills and things he can hurt you with. So I'm not surprised. I mean, to my eye, I think like Kai is more skilled to my eye, but that's not always how fights work out. You know, like tactics play a huge part. I think that's what makes fighting so cool, is like you can have better athleticism, better skills, and tactics and strategies can kind of like change everything. And that's actually my favorite part about MMA. It's like how deep you can really get into kind of mixing ideas together and figuring out how to defeat people who have, you know, skill sets that would be kind of very tough for your particular style or body type or whatever. But yeah, but congrats to him. He was a cool guy, so I'm very happy for him. I think he actually got, when I beat him, that's when he got cut by the UFC, which was crazy, because they were like they were gonna give us fight of the night, and then I think the main event, Benson versus Thatch. Dana really came up to me and he's like, "Hey, we were gonna give you the fight of the night, 50 grand bonus, but we're gonna give it to these guys, the main event guys, instead." And I was like, why would you tell me? Why would you hurt me like that?
It's fucked up.
So then, like, it was like a fight of the night quality fight, and then they cut him after that anyway. And then he won the Ultimate Fighter and got back on and got the title shot, and he's been doing, you know, pretty well ever since. So, yeah, happy for him.
Yeah, definitely. And kind of transitioning over to the coaching side of things, when did you realize that was something you wanted to do?
I guess it was always kind of the plan. I don't know if it was the plan, but I mean, eventually I wasn't going to be able to compete anymore. I knew I liked teaching. I started like teaching some classes when I was in Philly. I would fill in occasionally at Tristar and cover like a jiu-jitsu class or something. And then really during COVID, when I was fighting internationally and kind of like everything shut down, they weren't doing like international flights for international fights or anything. So I started teaching at Finishers. You know, I'm from Bethlehem and was around the area. So started teaching. They didn't really have an MMA program going, like a consistent one. So they asked me if I wanted to kind of start a program, being like consistent. And then, I mean, I really like teaching and everything. I was also way before I was even fighting full time, I was a strength and conditioning coach. So I like that. Although it was like you help them in like one area and not directly preparing for competition. I definitely like helping the guys train and put them through drills and help them through problems they're having and game planning and strategizing for opponents. I think it's really fun, and I think we've had a lot of success and a lot of good guys come through. Mostly amateurs still. I mean, we just started the program in 2021, so it's still only 4 years old or something. So, I mean, so far so good. I really like it. And now, like, I just opened up my own gym. It's at Planet Lansdale, and so we're kind of starting over there. But I'm still the MMA coach at Bethlehem. I'm still there 3 nights a week helping those guys. So it's great. I really enjoy teaching and coaching. So
It's awesome.
Yeah, it's all kind of piggybacking off of that question. I'm sure there has to be plenty of rising talent at the gyms you coach at, whether on the grappling scene or the MMA scene. Are there any names in particular that maybe we should keep our eyes and ears out for?
yeah, I think so. The only pro I have is Matt Santos. He's 1-0 as a pro, but I think he had a bunch of amateur fights before he came and trained with us, but he's developed a lot. He's one of the most improved guys that I've had since we started to now, and he's on like a 4 or 5 fight win streak, including his pro debut. So I think keep an eye on him at the early like regional pro level, and then hopefully he gets onto a bigger stage, whether it's UFC, PFL, or somewhere internationally won, whatever. And then as far as amateurs go, I'd say Artis Smith is one of the most promising. He's fighting for an amateur title September 6th for Dead Serious. He's 4-2, and his 2 losses were to, I think, undefeated guys at the time. And I think he could have won both of those fights, but part of the amateur process is kind of learning, not only displaying your skills, but kind of learning how to control a fight, how to control your energy, and kind of like how to make sure you're in control of the action, or knowing when you have to change something that's not working out. So I think he's doing a really great job. And then this guy hasn't had a fight yet, but I mean, he's one of the like purest talents I've seen in a gym so far. I think he picks up everything like crazy fast. He's a great athlete, super hard worker, extremely disciplined. Kind of has everything you would want. His name is Ray Santiago. He's 3-0 kickboxing, but hasn't had an MMA fight yet. We're looking for his MMA debut sometime towards the end of this year, October, November, December. Working on trying to set that up now. So those are the guys at the moment that I would be keeping an eye out for.
Great. I'll definitely be looking out for him. And while on the topic here of rising talent, would you get more nervous if you yourself is fighting or if you're sitting there cornering someone?
It's pretty tough. It's not, to me, it's not like an obvious answer. It's similar feelings. I don't know. I get pretty nervous when I fight, so I'm not one of the people who like don't get nervous. I'm extremely nervous before I fight. When you're fighting, you're not nervous. So, but I am nervous for them while they're fighting. I don't know. It's a very similar feeling. It's hard to say. I'd say, I guess, because I guess I would say I got more nervous for me so far, because I do, and I tell this to my fighters, like, amateur fighting is, and I've had almost exclusively amateur. I've had a couple pros, but almost all amateurs. Amateur is just like more serious practice, in my opinion. So I'd say, I guess I felt like more was on the line for me. Like, my financial status is on the line. Like, can I make my rent, or do I have to go get a side job if I lose this fight? That's one of the most stressful things about fighting, I'd say. Like, okay, I got to win, because there's actually a huge difference in like my financial results if I win or lose. This is one thing I'll bring up is like I think the pay structure in MMA in general is terrible. The 50-50 split, like show money, win money, and it's half. You get half the amount of money if you lose as if you win, and sometimes it's like a split decision that's controversial, and you get half the amount of
Yeah,
money. These three, it's pretty bad.
I agree.
When I was negotiating with Ryzen, I would negotiate with Ryzen after the UFC, but I went to a different show, a Russian show, ACB, which also doesn't exist anymore. But when Ryzen didn't do the 50-50 split, they did it in a way smarter way, in my opinion. They gave a higher base rate just to show up and fight, and then there wasn't a win bonus, there was a finish bonus, which is like instead of like 50-50, it was maybe like 20% add-on, but only for a finish. So like if you are winning the fight and you go out of your way to take a risk to go for the finish and something goes wrong and you don't lose your money. You know, it's only incentivized to go after the finish, never like, I'll just, hold back for this last round because I already banked the first couple rounds or whatever. So I think that makes way more sense. And also just giving people enough up front just to step in there, I would say is just overall a better model. Hope we transition
Yeah,
like that.
Yeah, I agree.
and even on the topic of that, at that point, if fighters are compensated better, then you allow them to not have side jobs, train full time. You're just going to get better quality fighters as well. So it's another thing to look at there. But
100%.
while on the top, like while on just the topic here of MMA and whatnot, and the game in general, what would you say has been the biggest change in MMA from when you first started training to now?
I mean, there's been a lot of. I've been around a long time. There's been a lot of changes. I guess just the general popularity of it. Like when I started, it wasn't called MMA. MMA, it was called NH. Like I said before in the interview, it was called NHB around here. And okay, when I first started fighting, I had this was not going to be a career for me. I was looking to get into physical therapy. I was a strength and conditioning coach. I was doing stuff like that because the lightest weight class in the UFC was 155, and there were no like, I think even the WC at that time maybe had featherweight or bantam. I don't even know if they had bantamweight yet, and like so there was no my weight class was not a viable thing. I actually, after like 2 or 3 pro fights, I tried out for one of the Ultimate Fighters where they had like tryouts. A bunch of us from like some of the gyms in Philly took a van and drove to Boston where they were doing the trials. And there's like 300, 400 people show up to these trials. This trial's for 155, and I'm fighting. At the time, I was fighting 135, but like so they just randomly call 2 people. You roll with the other person for like 2 minutes. They tell you not to try to like kill the person, but just like kind of display as many of your skills as possible. And I did like really well with the guy they put me out there with, even though I was much smaller, kind of like moved around him, got to a bunch of positions where I could finish stuff, and just kind of kept flowing and showing like a bunch of stuff. And then they called me over to the table after the roll and some of the people who were working for Spike. It was on Spike TV at the time. And they're like, "What do you weigh?" And I lied because I was lighter than this. I'm like, I walk around like a little over 150. And I was like walking around like 142 or something. And they're like, "No, this is a 55 show. These guys are cutting from like 80, 85. And I'm like, "Well, put me on the show and let's see how it goes." And they're like, "You're small, but you look good." And then I was like, "Okay, like, how about you give the WC a call? Tell them to get me on an event there." And they're like, "Keep working, you'll make it." So like, I guess the fact that like smaller weight classes and women can make a career out of it would, I guess, be some of the bigger ones. Like UFC didn't have anything below 155, and there was no 125. And 125 didn't start until 2012, which is like that's when I lost the Bellator title. So it was I didn't think I was gonna like really be able to make a career out of it, especially early on. It's only as the sport grew, kind of like as I was in it and like then more and more opportunities became available. So I guess just like the growth of it in general and the inclusion of some of the smaller weights and the women also. So
Gotcha. If you were in charge of MMA rule sets and whatnot and how the fights are played out, are there any specific rule changes that you would make?
I am not a fan of the 10-point must system at all. I actually wrote an article about explaining why I think it sucks for MMA. I mean, I don't even know if I like it for boxing, but it's much more. It makes way more sense in boxing. So I think I would change the way it gets scored. Probably to like a system where you judge the fight as a whole. Although I would like there to be like the judges would have to like write kind of like maybe they just pick a winner and write like a couple sentences or a paragraph about why they thought the person won the fight, and then just so we have like something if there's like a weird decision, like they don't just get to have no explanation for why they picked the opponent. I do think there's maybe a little bit less accountability to the judges in that case because they don't have to hand in a score every round. But I just think there's so many issues with the 10-point must system, especially when you compare it to boxing. Like, there's 10, like in high level fights in boxing, there's 10 to 12 rounds. If a judge messes up, or not messes up, but just has a atypical interpretation of the action, that counts for 1/10 or 1/12 of the bout. In MMA, it's 1/3 or 1/5. Not only that, but the rounds are longer in MMA. You're judging a 3-minute round in boxing versus a 5-minute round, and in MMA, the action is much more diverse. Like in boxing, you're judging punches against other punches. In MMA, you're judging takedowns, submissions, kicks, punches, elbows, control. Like it's a much more complicated dynamic to score, and you have to use one score for a more complicated dynamic for a longer period of time, and every one of those scores counts for a bigger percentage of the total. It just, to me, it's obvious that this would cause a lot of problems with the scoring of fights, and scoring is what the main thing I would change, I guess. As far as like rules to the actual like sport, I would like knees to the head on the ground. I would be in favor of probably not soccer kicks. I think soccer kicks are a little too brutal. Yeah, I don't know. 12-6. I'm happy they brought in 12-6. Always ridiculous that you couldn't do that.
Yeah, I agree with you there.
Yeah, no, they were waiting on that one for a while.
What do you guys?
Just,
Had any rule changes in favor of?
I think the scoring system is messed up as well. I don't know. Like, I've thought about what the best way to fix it is. Maybe you bring in 2 more judges just so, like, 3 judges is their decision is pretty impactful there. Maybe they go to some sort of decimal system. I don't know if they'll try to get AI involved, but I think there's definitely a problem there. There's just too many bad decisions when guys' paychecks are on the line. So that's one that I agree with heavily.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I wrote all this stuff. 5 judges would reduce the impact of like a stray scorecard, and the half-point system I think would be a slight improvement over like just the 10-point must system.
I agree.
But I still think there's issues with it. Even I think you'll be making it better, but still not. Not that there's a perfect system that will not have any issues. Judging is subjective inherently. There's no way getting around that. Like if you're gonna have people judging a fight, it's gonna be subjective. So, I mean, the truth is, they shouldn't be scared to give more fights draws. More fights deserve to be draws.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You said
I
you
wrote
wrote
a
an
whole
article.
about this. Go check out my article on it. It's on.
Yeah, I was going to ask where we could find it. It's going to be my
It's
follow-up.
on a website called The Fight. I wrote 2 articles, one on the 10-point must system and one on like loyalty within the MMA community as far as like people getting mad about cross training or like how much you should feel responsible to, how much you should feel responsible to like stay with the people who like you started training with versus like branching out, and like how to kind of balance those ideas. That was one of them. I have a bunch of ideas for articles I want to write. I just haven't gotten around to them. My most controversial topic, which I have not written yet, but I really want to, and we can talk about this if you want, is I want to write an article called "A Case Against Heavyweights" because I have some pretty big bones to pick with heavyweights, and I just feel they get they get paid way more than smaller guys, and I think for actually way less skill and way less effort, in my opinion. And I think they basically get credit just for being big. Like the attention and therefore the money they make over, let's say, someone like Demetrius Johnson is solely because they're just bigger people. And I have an issue with that. And I have a lot of friends who are heavyweights who I badger about this all the time. But I haven't written it yet. I'm pretty sure it would be pretty controversial because I don't have a ton of great things to say about heavyweights.
Yeah, I will say that sounds like a fun read there, and kind of even stemming off from what you were saying. You look at a guy like Walter Walker in the UFC right now, who has 3 straight heel hook submission wins up at heavyweight. And I mean, I don't know if you're going to see a guy racking off 3 straight heel
This
hooks
isn't
in
a
the lighter
blanket
division.
statement. This is general trend. I'm not going to include every single heavyweight. I'm just saying in general.
I was just saying, like, the fact that none of the heavyweights can defend the heel hook there. Not saying I can by any means, but it just kind of shows the differences between divisions. You have one guy who has a nice heel hook, and he can just get everyone out of there.
Yeah, the last one, there should have been more action there. Maybe he eventually gets it, but the guy didn't defend. And and people always tell me, they're like, yeah, but like the heavyweights got so much power. Like when they hit, people go down, and I'm like, they're too slow to get out of the way.
I
Oh,
think
that's
that's
great.
kind of why, like that's why a lot of people, I think, wanted, I mean, myself in particular, too, they wanted that John Jones, Tom Aspinall fight so bad because the division's so top heavy, like aside from maybe Cyril Gahn, Volkov, like there's nobody really else for Aspinall to fight, so I definitely see where you're coming from with that. But kind of as we wind down here a little bit, just have a fun one for you. My answer to this question is probably pretty obvious from the shirt. Do you have a favorite UFC fighter? And if so, who might that be?
Current or ever?
Ever. Let's go ever.
GSP. He had a heavy influence on my style. I think really before I even trained with him, I got to learn how to set up takedowns in MMA with striking because wrestling is going to help you a ton as far as controlling people, being able to scramble, but like actually all the setups for takedowns are just like almost completely totally opposite. There's no like grabbing your partner, like push pull, snap their head, fake. Like it's all from distance, and it's like a lot of it is really timing based. And I really learned a lot from watching George. It was one of the reasons I first went to Tristar, just to kind of train with my favorite guy up there. But him and then another guy who I really liked watching back in his prime was Lyoto Machida. They were probably maybe like my 2 favorites for a long time.
Awesome. And I don't want to take too much time or too much of your time here. So the last one that I have on my end, if you were in charge of designing the MMA Mount Rushmore, what 4 guys are you putting up there?
So I mean, like, what's the? It's like I get to pick like whatever I want to put on Mount Rushmore. There's not like here's how you're choosing.
No, just whatever your top 4 MMA Mount Rushmore, you can decide your own criteria for that.
So I think I would go for like a bit of a historical perspective. So these aren't like the best guys ever or anything, but I would put Hoist Gracie on there. Um, um, I think I would put Kazushi Sakuraba on there for being the first guy to like beat the Gracies, 4 of them in a row, and kind of show there's more to it than just this grappling system that they have. Ronda Rousey for being the first woman and dominant champion for a long time. And then maybe GSP for kind of modernizing modernizing the sport to a level that I think it wasn't at before he was there. But I would also want to leave room to either add on in the future to it, because this is just up to kind of now. And again, it's kind of like more of a historical look on it than just like my favorite for the guys who I think are the most dominant for or whatever.
Definitely. And that is all we have for you. I wanted to say thank you very much again for taking the time to talk to us today. And the floor is yours if you have anything else you want to say.
My pleasure, guys. Thanks for having me. Make sure to check out all the Finishers MMA fighters if you're an MMA fan. Again, mostly amateur guys we got, but Matt is a pro, and we got some guys who will be probably turning pro soon. If you're in the Pennsylvania area, come check out 10th Planet Lansdale. Me and my business partner Quinn Purrier just opened it. We're open like less than a month so far, but it's going well so far. So if you enjoy watching it and you want to have fun training, come check us out.
Awesome. Thank you very much again.
My pleasure, guys.
Appreciate it. Thank you.